The grand station of Horus Prime floated in the void like a jewel of light. Thousands of alien ships circled it, each bearing banners of their empire. It was meant to be a place of peace. Here, the Empress of the Vare Dominion was to meet rival leaders and speak of treaties, borders, and trade. Inside the shining halls, guards in golden armor stood tall. They were the Empress's protectors, chosen from the best of her people. They carried long plasma spears, their faces hidden behind polished helms. Musicians played soft tunes, and alien dignitaries bowed as the Empress walked down the marble floor. Her gown shimmered with woven light, a symbol of her royal power. Behind her walked a single human soldier. His name was Sergeant Daniel Hale. He was not dressed in golden armor, nor did he shine with honor. His uniform was plain, dark green, and simple. He was not even meant to be important. To the aliens, he was only there for show, a token guard from humanity. A small young species still new to the galactic stage. Many aliens whispered among themselves, "Why does the Empress need a human with her?" A primitive soldier, nothing more than a ceremonial piece. They fight with flesh and steel. They have not grown beyond violence. Daniel heard the whispers, but kept silent. His eyes moved, scanning the crowd, the high ceilings, the hidden shadows above the balconies. He had been trained for war, not ceremony. He was a soldier of Earth, and soldiers knew that danger always struck when you least expected it. The Empress raised her hand, greeting the rulers of rival systems. Her voice rang clear, soft, but powerful. "Today we speak not as enemies, but as those who wish for peace." For a moment, the station was calm. For a moment, it seemed peace might be possible. Then the lights dimmed. At first, many thought it was a simple power shift. But then came the sound, the sharp hiss of weapons being drawn. From the balconies above, black-armored assassins dropped like shadows. Their rifles spat crimson bolts, slicing through the air. The music shattered into screams. Alien dignitaries fell, guards shouted, and chaos filled the hall. The Empress froze, shock flashing across her face. "Protect the Empress," one of her golden guards cried. But instead of standing firm, the guards panicked. Plasma fire cut through their ranks, and one by one they dropped their weapons and ran. Some tried to shield themselves. Others simply fled, leaving their Empress behind. The golden line of defense broke apart like glass under a hammer. Daniel moved without hesitation. His training kicked in before thought. He grabbed the Empress and pulled her behind a marble column as plasma fire scorched the ground where she had stood. Her eyes were wide, her breath sharp. "My guards, they run?" she whispered, disbelief cracking her voice. Daniel didn't answer. He drew his sidearm, a human ballistic pistol. Compared to alien plasma rifles, it was old-fashioned. It fired metal rounds with gunpowder, loud and dirty, but in his hands it was deadly. An assassin leaped down, aiming his rifle at the column. Daniel leaned out, fired 3 quick shots. The gun roared like thunder, and the assassin's chest burst open. The alien crumpled, lifeless, his weapon clattering against the floor. The sound stunned the hall. Many aliens had never heard such a primitive, brutal weapon. The Empress stared at him. "You fight why, with noise and fire?" Daniel's voice was calm, steady. "I fight to keep you alive, ma'am." More assassins advanced. Plasma bolts seared the air, scorching walls and statues. Daniel moved fast, pushing the Empress low to the ground. A bolt grazed his arm, burning the fabric of his uniform, but he gritted his teeth and fired back. Each shot was deliberate, each one ending an enemy life. The Empress's heart raced. She had never seen war up close. In her empire, leaders stayed far from the battlefield. Death was something distant, something clean. But here, blood sprayed across the floor, screams echoed against marble, and one human stood in the middle of it all. The golden guards were gone. Not one remained. But the human did not flee. "Stay close to me," Daniel ordered, his tone sharp like steel. She obeyed without thinking. He pulled her through the chaos, his eyes scanning for cover. More assassins landed from the rafters. One aimed at the Empress, his rifle glowing. Daniel didn't think. He threw himself between her and the bolt. The plasma struck his chest plate, searing through the armor. He stumbled, but stayed upright. The Empress gasped. "You are hit?" "Not enough to stop me," Daniel growled, firing back. His bullet tore through the assassin's skull. Her breath caught in her throat. Her people, trained for years, had fled without a fight. But this human, bleeding and burning, stood unbroken. They ran into a side corridor, the sound of pursuit. Behind them, Daniel pressed against the wall, panting, blood dripping from his chest wound. His hand trembled, but his eyes stayed cold and focused. The Empress, still in shock, whispered, "Why? Why do you not leave me like the others?" Daniel checked his pistol, reloaded, and met her gaze. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "Because I swore to protect you. That's my duty. And where I come from, duty means everything." Her throat tightened. In that moment, she understood. This human was not here for honor, not for show, not for reward. He was here because he believed in something her own guards had forgotten. Footsteps thundered behind them. The assassins were coming. Closer. Daniel pushed her forward. "Move, we're not done yet." Together they ran deeper into the station's service corridors, the shouts of assassins echoing after them. But the Empress could not forget the image burned into her mind. Her golden guards fleeing, and one human standing between her and death, his body already marked with wounds. The service corridors of Horus Prime were nothing like the grand halls above. Here there were no polished floors, no golden walls, no shining banners. The air smelled of oil and burned wires. Pipes rattled overhead, and the lights flickered weakly. The Empress's dress, made of light thread silk, now dragged across dirt and grease. She was breathing hard, unused to running. Daniel stayed ahead of her, pistol in hand, blood still dripping from his wound. His chest burned with every breath, but he kept moving. Behind them, the sound of boots and hissing rifles grew louder. The assassins were hunting them. "Where are you taking me?" the Empress asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. Daniel glanced back at her. Away from open ground, assassins love wide halls. Corridors like this make it harder for them to use numbers. You speak as if you know their minds. "I don't need to know their minds," Daniel said, his voice flat. "I just know how killers move. Doesn't matter if they're human or alien." The Empress stared at him. His tone was calm, but his eyes never stopped scanning, calculating. She had spoken with generals, with admirals, with leaders of fleets, but this single soldier radiated something different. He was not speaking theory. He was speaking survival. A sharp hiss filled the corridor. Daniel pushed her down just as a plasma bolt scorched the wall above her head. He spun, firing 3 shots. The gun roared, and one assassin fell with a scream. The others ducked back. "Keep moving," Daniel ordered, pulling the Empress forward. They turned corner after corner until the corridor opened into a wide maintenance chamber filled with pipes, cargo crates, and humming generators. Daniel pulled her behind the cover of stacked containers. The first time since the attack began, there was a pause. The Empress clutched her chest, trying to steady her breath. Her heart was pounding so fast it hurt. She had never run for her life before. She had never felt this helpless. Daniel checked his pistol. He had fired more than half his ammunition. He carried only 2 spare magazines. His weapon was strong, but it would not last forever. "You are hurt," the Empress said softly, her eyes on the black burn across his chest. "I've been hurt before." He tightened his grip on the pistol. "Pain means you're still alive. Dead men don't feel pain." The words chilled her, yet at the same time they steadied her. He spoke of death as if it was a familiar companion. From the shadows above, a voice hissed, "You cannot run, Empress. The Dominion falls tonight. Surrender, and your death will be quick." The Empress froze. She recognized the voice. It belonged to Lord Veyron, a noble of her court once sworn to her family. Betrayal burned in her chest like fire. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Don't listen to him." The assassins emerged from the shadows, their black armor gleaming faintly under the flickering lights. There were at least 6 of them, rifles raised. The Empress's breath caught. 6 against 1. Daniel was already bleeding. It was impossible. But Daniel did not run. He did not cower. He raised his pistol and whispered, "Stay behind me." The first assassin fired. Daniel moved sideways, dragging the Empress with him, a plasma bolt scorching past. He returned fire, one shot striking the assassin's leg. The alien screamed, collapsing. The others rushed forward. They expected Daniel to fall back, to retreat, but he charged at them instead. The Empress gasped as Daniel closed the distance. Plasma bolts flew, one grazing his shoulder, another tearing across his side, but he kept running. His pistol barked, killing one assassin. Then he was too close for rifles. With a roar, Daniel slammed into the nearest enemy, knocking the rifle aside and driving his knife into the alien's throat. Blood sprayed across the floor. He wrenched the blade free and spun, blocking another strike with his forearm before slamming the assassin against the wall. His fist crushed into the alien's jaw, breaking bone. The Empress watched, wide-eyed as the fight became raw, savage. Aliens fought with elegance, with strategy, with formations. This was different. This was brutal. Daniel fought like survival itself had taken human form. One assassin tried to aim at the Empress. Daniel saw it and threw himself in front of her, again. The plasma bolt slammed into his back armor, burning deep. He groaned, stumbling, but still turned, raised his pistol, and shot the assassin dead. The Empress's hands trembled. She wanted to scream at him to stop, to run, to save himself. But he did not. He fought as if her life was worth more than his own. At last, the chamber grew silent. 5 assassins lay dead. One crawled away, clutching his leg before Daniel finished. Him with a single shot. Blood dripped from Daniel's side and chest. He leaned against a crate, panting. His uniform was torn, his skin burned and bleeding. You are mad," the Empress whispered. Daniel looked at her, his face pale but his eyes steady. "No, just doing my job." Her throat tightened. She could not understand. Her own guards, chosen for honor, had fled. This human, with no oath to her throne, with no reward promised, fought until his body broke. "Why?" she asked again, voice shaking. "Why do you risk everything for me?" Daniel reloaded his pistol with shaking hands. "Because someone has to. And if not me, then who?" The simplicity of the answer struck her harder than any speech. He stood again, though his knees trembled. "We can't stay here. They'll regroup. We need to reach the docking bay." The Empress nodded slowly, her mind spinning. She followed him as he limped forward, every step leaving drops of blood on the floor. As they moved through the corridors, she could not stop replaying the fight in her mind. The noise of his pistol, the way he charged instead of fleeing, the way he threw himself between her and death again and again. Her people called humans primitive, violent, too attached to flesh and steel. But in this moment, she saw something no other species possessed. They did not fight only for victory. They fought for loyalty, for duty, for something beyond themselves. And that was far more terrifying than any weapon. The assassins' voices echoed through the corridors again. They were regrouping, cutting off exits. Daniel knew they were being herded toward the docking bay. He also knew that was their only chance. "We'll have to fight through them," he said quietly. The Empress felt fear twist inside her chest. "You cannot fight them all. You are only one man." Daniel glanced back at her. Despite the blood running down his arm, his lips curved in the faintest smile. "One man's enough. You'll see." The docking bay stretched wide before them. Cargo crates were stacked high, fuel lines hissed with vapor, and the glow of shuttle lights painted the floor in pale blue. It should have been a place of order, a place where starships came and went, under strict control. Instead, it was crawling with assassins. Black-armored figures moved between the crates, their rifles glowing with ready charge. At the far end of the bay, near the Empress's personal shuttle, a tall figure stood watching. His armor gleamed with silver markings of rank. The Empress froze. She knew him. Lord Veyron, once her most trusted noble. He had sworn loyalty to her family when she first rose to the throne. Now betrayal burned in his eyes. Your reign ends here, Varen called across the chamber. His voice was deep, cruel. The Dominion needs strength, not a ruler who speaks of peace. Tonight your death will give birth to war. The Empress's heart pounded. Her own noble, her own blood. Betrayal was a knife sharper than any blade. Daniel stepped in front of her, pistol raised. His chest and arms still bled from earlier wounds, but his stance was steady. Talk later, he muttered. They're coming. The assassin surged forward. Plasma fire lit the air, searing across crates and floor. Daniel pulled the Empress behind a stack of cargo, pressing her low. Bolts slammed into the metal above them, glowing holes into the steel. Stay down, he ordered, leaning out to fire. His pistol cracked, echoing across the bay. One assassin fell, then another. But for every one he dropped, 3 more closed in. The Empress covered her ears. The noise of his weapon was deafening, brutal. Each shot felt like thunder, each death like lightning. She had never seen such savage combat. Her guards used energy weapons. Silent, precise. This human's weapon was raw violence, every bullet tearing through armor and flesh with merciless force. Daniel ducked back, reloading quickly. His hand shook, but his eyes were sharp. They'll try to flank us, he said. We can't stay pinned. The Empress's hands trembled. She wanted to ask how long he could keep fighting, how long his bleeding body could last. But when she looked at him, she saw no fear, only resolve. Another wave came. Daniel charged out from cover, moving low and fast. Plasma bolts grazed his side, burning more of his uniform, but he fired back, each shot finding its mark. He kicked over a fuel canister, rolling it into 2 assassins before shooting it. The explosion threw them across the bay, their screams cut short. The Empress gasped at the sight. Humans didn't just fight. They used everything around them, turning chaos into weapons, but more assassins pressed in. Daniel pulled back to her side, breathing hard. His pistol was nearly empty. He had only 1 magazine left. Out of ammo? The Empress whispered, fear curling her voice. Daniel shook his head. Never out, just gotta get closer. He drew his combat knife, its steel blade shining under the docking lights. The Empress's eyes widened. You would fight them? With only that? Daniel's lips pressed into a thin line. If that's what it takes. The assassins charged. Again. Plasma bolts rained down. Daniel threw himself in front of the Empress, taking a hit to his shoulder. He staggered, groaning, but still moved forward. He slammed into the nearest assassin, driving the knife through its armor. Blood sprayed. He yanked the blade free and grabbed the alien's rifle, firing point blank into 2 more. The Empress could only stare. His body was breaking, yet his will seemed endless. Every time she thought he would fall, he rose again, striking harder. Above them, Lord Varen laughed. Look at this, Empress. A single human fights harder for your life than your entire guard. What does that say of your rule? His words cut deep. The Empress felt shame burn in her chest. Her people had failed her. Only the human stood. But when she looked at Daniel, bleeding, fighting, refusing to fall, something else stirred in her, something stronger than shame. Resolve. The Empress grabbed a fallen assassin's weapon, a sleek plasma pistol. Her hands shook, unused to the weight, but she raised it. For the first time in her life, she aimed a weapon. Daniel glanced back, his eyes widening. Stay behind cover. I will not run while you bleed for me, she said firmly. Her voice, though, trembling, carried the tone of command. Daniel gave a short nod. No time for more. The assassins pressed again. Together they fired, Daniel's thunderous pistol and the Empress's shaky but determined shots. Aliens fell one after another. Still, the numbers were overwhelming. Bodies littered the bay, but more assassins poured in. Daniel was slowing. His wounds bled freely, his arm hung heavy. Every movement cost him pain, but he pushed through it. The Empress fired again, missing her mark. A plasma bolt came toward her, too fast to dodge. Daniel saw it. Without thought, he lunged, throwing himself in front of her again. The bolt struck his back, burning deep into flesh. He roared in agony, falling to one knee. "Daniel!" the Empress cried, grabbing his arm. His uniform was charred, blood soaking through. He gritted his teeth, forcing himself up. Not done yet. The Empress's heart ached. How could he still rise? How could a single human carry such strength? Then, silence. The last of the assassins fell, their black armor scattered across the bay. But more footsteps echoed. Reinforcements. Too many. Lord Varen stepped forward, his silver armor gleaming. He held a long plasma blade, its glow casting his face in cruel light. "You cannot win, human," he said with a sneer. "Your body breaks. Your weapon is empty. Yield, and I may let you die quickly." Daniel stood, swaying, his knife still, in hand. He raised his pistol too, though only one bullet remained. His chest heaved, his body a map of burns and blood. But his voice was steady. "You'll touch her, over my dead body." The Empress's breath caught. In that moment she knew. He meant every word. He would not yield. Not while she still breathed. Varen smiled coldly. "Then your wish will be granted." He raised his blade. The assassins behind him moved forward. The Empress clutched Daniel's arm, her own plasma pistol shaking in her hand. For the first time in her life, she did not feel like an untouchable ruler. She felt like prey. But beside her stood a predator, human and unbreakable, blood on the throne, betrayal in her heart, and one soldier standing against the storm. And she realized with a sharp, painful truth, if she survived this night, it would not be because of her empire, her fleets or her guards. It would be because of a single human who refused to fall. The assassins advanced. Daniel tightened his grip on his knife, his last bullet ready. The final battle for her life was about to begin. The air in the docking bay was thick with smoke, the smell of burned metal and blood clinging to everything. Sparks flew from scorched floors and ripped panels, mixing with the hiss of venting fuel. The Empress stood behind Daniel, clutching the alien plasma pistol. Her hands trembled violently, but she refused to lower the weapon. Before them, Lord Varen advanced slowly, the silver glow of his plasma blade cutting through the smoke like a living knife. His voice carried across the bay, calm, but cruel. "You have fought well, human, but this is the end. Step aside and let me end her suffering." Daniel shifted slightly, placing himself directly between Varen and the Empress. His chest heaved, blood dripping from the burns across his body. His knife gleamed in one hand, the pistol empty in the other. "I said, you'll touch her over my dead body," Daniel growled. Varen laughed. So stubborn, so primitive. The assassins flanked him, encircling the two. The Empress's mind raced. She had always believed her people were strong, disciplined, and unbeatable. Yet here, alone, she was seeing the human way of fighting, raw, unrelenting, fearless. One man, and yet he had held the line against dozens. Daniel lunged first. He moved like a storm, slashing and spinning, taking the first assassin down before the others could react. Varen's eyes narrowed, surprised at the speed and savagery of a single human. The Empress fired her pistol again, and this time, the blast hit its target. A second assassin fell. Her confidence wavered but did not break. For the first time, she felt part of the fight, not just a victim. Daniel's wounds slowed him, but he refused to stop. He blocked a plasma strike from Varen's blade with the flat of his knife, sparks flying as metal clashed against metal. Pain shot through his shoulder and side, but he stood unbroken. "You are stronger than I imagined," Varen said, circling him. "But strength is not enough. You cannot protect her forever," Daniel growled, slashing at another assassin. "Strength is not just muscle. It is will. You will see." The Empress watched, her heart pounding. The human's words carried weight. She realized that his strength was not in his body alone. It was in his mind, his refusal to yield, his unshakable loyalty. A plasma bolt grazed Daniel's leg, and he stumbled. Veyron lunged forward, blade aimed at the human's chest. Without hesitation, Daniel threw himself sideways, dragging the Empress behind cover as the blade sliced through the air where he had been. Her hands shook as she held the pistol. Daniel, still on one knee, barked a command. "Now! Shoot him!" The Empress fired. The beam struck Veyron's side, burning through the edge of his armor. He roared, stepping back in surprise. Daniel used the moment to strike another assassin, knife flashing. "Keep moving," he barked. "We need the shuttle." The Empress, feeling adrenaline pulse through her, nodded. She realized she was no longer paralyzed by fear. The human beside her had shown her what it meant to fight, not just for life, but for duty, for loyalty. They ran together, weaving through overturned crates and fallen enemies. Daniel's movements were slowing, but his mind remained sharp. He could sense every attacker, predict every strike. He was the storm, and the Empress followed within, the eye. Another wave of assassins blocked the corridor to the shuttle. Daniel raised his knife. "Stay close," he shouted. He charged. His knife cut through armor. His pistol struck enemies point blank. The Empress raised her weapon and fired, hitting one of the black-armored assassins squarely in the chest. Together, they became a deadly pair, fighting side by side for survival. Veyron, watching them, narrowed his eyes. "Interesting," he muttered. "A human and a ruler fighting as one. Let's see how long that lasts." He leapt forward, blade first, aiming at Daniel. The human soldier met him, knife against blade. Sparks flew as metal struck metal. Daniel's wounds screamed, but he gritted his teeth. With a powerful shove, he pushed Veyron back, buying the Empress time to strike. Her aim was steady now. She fired, grazing Veyron's side again. He hissed in pain, but did not fall. Daniel saw her hesitation fade, replaced by determination. He felt a surge of hope. Together, they could escape. Suddenly, an assassin aimed at the Empress from above a crate. Without thought, Daniel threw himself, forward, shielding her body. The plasma bolt struck his back, burning deep. He fell to the ground with a grunt of pain, dragging her behind him. "Daniel!" she screamed, panic rising. He looked up, blood running into his eyes, and gave a brief, strained nod. "Move! Get to the shuttle!" The Empress's fear turned into resolve. She raised her pistol, firing at the assassin above. The alien fell, dead. She turned to Daniel, who was struggling to rise. "Hold on," she whispered. With all her strength, she helped him to his feet. His legs shook and his uniform was shredded. Blood poured from his burns and cuts, but his eyes burned with determination. Together, they reached the shuttle. Daniel lashed the door open, helping the Empress inside. He scanned the bay, noting the remaining assassins closing in. "They'll never let us leave quietly," he muttered. The Empress, gripping the shuttle controls, looked at him. "I don't care. You've kept me alive this far. I will not abandon. You know." Daniel gave a brief, tired smile. "Good, we fight together then." As the shuttle engines roared to life, Veyron raised his plasma blade again. "You will not escape." Daniel, standing in the shuttle doorway, raised his knife and pistol in defiance. "Try me." The Empress fired the shuttle's defensive turrets, plasma bolts raining on the incoming assassins. Daniel covered her, blocking attacks, striking enemies, and holding the line. His body ached beyond reason, every wound screaming, yet he stood. One final wave of assassins approached. Daniel's breathing was ragged. His knife was slick with blood. His uniform was nearly gone. Yet when the Empress looked at him, she saw no surrender. With a roar, Daniel charged forward, taking the remaining attackers head-on. The Empress's shuttle lifted off, moving slowly, guided by her careful hands. She watched him fight, every move a shield, every strike a promise. Finally, Daniel drove the last assassin back, his strength and will unmatched. The Empress watched in awe as he turned to follow her. She extended her hand. "Inside," he nodded, stepping into the shuttle. She pulled the door closed, sealing them both inside. The engines roared, lifting them above the docking bay. Below, the smoke and chaos of battle spread. The Empress, for the first time, realized the truth. This human soldier had done what her guards never could. He had fought not for honor, not for reward, but for loyalty, for her life. And she would never forget it. As the shuttle flew into the safety of orbit, Daniel slumped against the wall, exhausted and wounded, but alive. The Empress knelt beside him, tending his burns and cuts as best she could. You are not like anyone I have ever known," she said softly. He shook his head weakly. "I'm just a soldier, that's all I know." "No," she whispered, eyes filled with respect and awe. "You are more than that. You are human." Outside, the shuttle, the stars stretched endlessly, and inside, a human soldier and an alien empress, bound together by trust and courage, began to see that the galaxy was a different place than they had ever imagined. Tonight, loyalty and flesh had shielded a throne, and in the next days, the Ayam galaxy would learn why humans were feared, respected, and most of all unstoppable when they refused to fall. The stars stretched endlessly outside the shuttle's viewport. The hum of the engines was the only sound, soft and constant, a stark contrast to the chaos of the Aurus Prime docking bay that they had left behind. Smoke and fire still burned below, but the shuttle was moving away from it all. The Empress sat beside the human soldier, gently tending to his wounds. Daniel's uniform was torn, stained with blood and soot. His burns covered his chest and arms, his legs still weak from the damage he had taken, but despite the pain his eyes were clear, sharp, and alive. You could have died back there," the Empress said, her voice trembling slightly. "You should have. I don't even know why you didn't." Daniel gave a weak smile. "Because I promised to protect you, that's what soldiers do. Even if we die, we don't run." She shook her head in disbelief. "Your people. Humans. I never understood you before. Now I see. Your courage. Your loyalty. It is unlike anything I have ever known." Daniel's lips curved faintly. "It's not just me. It's all of us. We fight for each other, for those who cannot fight for themselves. It's what makes us human." The Empress looked out at the stars, the lights of Aurus Prime fading behind them. She realized that her empire, her fleets, her armies, none of it had saved her. One human soldier, one small figure against an entire battalion, had kept her alive. The shuttle finally exited the station's orbit, moving toward the safety of the Dominion fleet. Communication channels were open, and she could already hear the whispers from her people. News of the assassination attempt had spread quickly. "They believe I am dead," she murmured. "They believe their Empress has fallen." Daniel, weak as he was, managed a small chuckle. "Good. Let them think that. It'll make them easier to manage when you return." The Empress smiled faintly, but her mind was still racing. She knew she owed her life to Daniel, to humans. The weight of the truth pressed down on her. Her guards had fled, her empire had failed her, yet one human had stood, alone. As the shuttle approached her flagship, the Empress contacted the Council. Her voice was firm, commanding. "Attention. This is Empress Solara of the Ver Dominion. I am alive. The assassination attempt has failed. The traitors responsible will face justice. And know this. One human saved my life. One human stood where my own guards fled." The Council was silent at first, astonished by the statement. Empress Solara continued, her voice stronger now. "Prepare to honor him. He is to be recognized as my eternal protector, a human soldier, whose courage will remind the Dominion of the true meaning of loyalty." Whispers spread throughout the fleet. The aliens could not understand. Their leaders had fled in fear, abandoned their Empress, yet a human, one human, had defied death itself. Daniel lay in the shuttle, exhausted, his body screaming for rest. The Empress knelt beside him, holding his hand gently. "You saved me, Daniel," she said softly. "You saved more than my life. You saved the Dominion from chaos. And the galaxy will know your name. He shook his head faintly, a tired smile on his lips. I'm just a soldier. Just did my job. You are more than a soldier, the Empress replied firmly. You are human. And humanity is something the galaxy will remember. Word of the assassination's failure spread across the Dominion. Alien leaders who had once dismissed humans as primitive and weak now whispered in awe and fear. They spoke of Daniel Hale, the human who had stood alone, the human who had shielded their Empress with his very body. Back in the shuttle, the Empress watched Daniel slowly regain his strength. Her heart was heavy with gratitude and respect. She had seen the limits of power, the fragility of her empire, and the immense strength that one human could wield through will alone. When the shuttle docked with her flagship, she personally escorted Daniel to the medical bay. The doctors trained to treat alien physiology worked carefully, but even they were astonished. Daniel's wounds should have killed him, yet he survived, scarred but unbroken. The Empress stayed beside him, refusing to leave. You will be honored, she promised. Every ceremony, every story, will carry your name. Your courage will be remembered by all. As the Dominion fleet regrouped, the Empress addressed the citizens and soldiers. Her voice rang across the galaxy. Today we learned a truth we cannot ignore. Strength is not measured by armies, fleets, or weapons alone. Strength is measured by loyalty, courage, and the will to stand when others flee. And one human soldier has shown us all the meaning of true strength. The humans on Earth watching the galactic newsfeed had already celebrated Daniel's survival and heroism. He became a symbol of the best of humanity, not because he was the strongest or the fastest, but because he was willing to stand when all others ran. Daniel eventually sat up in his medical bed, weak but alive. The Empress joined him, handing him water and steadying his trembling hands. You were magnificent, she said quietly. I would be dead if not for you. My empire would be in chaos. And yet here you are. I'm still alive, Daniel said with a faint grin. Somehow. The Empress smiled back. Not somehow, because you are human, and humans do not give up, not for themselves, and certainly not for those they protect. A formal ceremony followed. Across the Dominion, Daniel Hale was declared the eternal protector of the Empress. Alien leaders bowed before him, some with awe, some with fear. They understood finally that humans were not just another species. They were warriors, loyal, relentless, and utterly unpredictable. The Empress, now safely on her throne, stood and addressed the council one final time. Let it be known, a single human soldier has saved the life of an Empress. Let it also be known that loyalty and courage are the greatest powers in the galaxy. If one human can do this alone, imagine what humanity can do together. Daniel, sitting quietly beside her, simply nodded. He had no desire for fame or glory. He had done his duty, and that was enough. But the galaxy would not forget. From that day forward, every species that heard the story knew the same truth. Humans fight with a loyalty and courage unlike any other. They stand when all others flee. They protect with their very bodies. They are dangerous, not for their weapons, but for their will. And for the Empress and for her empire, Daniel Hale became more than a soldier. He became legend. The Empress looked at him one last time. You risked your life for me, Daniel. You shielded me with your body. And yet, here you are alive. You are proof that humanity is something no empire can ever ignore. Daniel only smiled faintly, weak but satisfied. Just doing my job, ma'am. Always. But the galaxy knew better. The human soldier had survived. He had protected an Empress. And in doing so, he had shown the galaxy why humans were feared, respected, and, above all, unstoppable when they refused to fall.